Our thanks to Birch Orthodontics. Can't forget about our friend Dr. Birch and her great staff at Birch Orthodontics. I have not seen Dr. Birch. This may be the longest stretch that I've gone without seeing Dr. Birch. I missed an appointment because I was out of town and my wife had to take her. And then the next one, I don't know why I missed it. Something else happened.
You're sick?
It's been like, maybe I was sick. It's been like 2 months. I haven't seen Dr. Birch. Dr. Birch, I miss you.
I think it's we may need to start a Dr. Birch recovery group, like support group, because I don't get in, for I don't know 6 years my kids were going in there, and I only see now at special occasions. So we'll start a little support group and maybe Dr. Birch can just meet. We can have a coffee group. We can meet at McDonald's like the old people.
Yeah,
with Dr. Birch and talk football and orthodontics.
We are old people.
Yeah,
just like that, exactly.
Well, I'm up for coffee anytime, anywhere, and especially if it's with Dr. Birch. I don't care if you guys show, but if she's there, I'm going.
You guys with kids, go to Birch Orthodontics, and they'll take care of all your kids' orthodontic needs, braces, Invisalign, all the latest techniques, great customer service, payment plans. They make it affordable. Go do the right thing and see Dr. Birch.
Panama Noel writes, seems obvious, but do you look at this offseason as the best 85-ish come out and the rest good luck? Is spring of college football these days becoming preseason in the NFL? Do scholarship counts need to go up from 85 to, say, 90?
I don't know about that, but I like the comparison about the spring being it is. I mean, that's
it kind of is, yeah.
You guys are going to figure out where they are on a depth chart, and they're going to go somewhere else. So they're not going to be released necessarily. Like, hey, man, come bring your iPad up to Coach Norvell. He wants to see you. But they, that is, you're going to cut some weight. Yes. It's just how it works, man.
It's going to be mostly the guys. I think that window is going to be mostly guys. You might see some high-profile guys. Keon Coleman came out at that time last year. It's going to be a lot of guys who are third, fourth-year guys, and Corey mentioned it on Wake Up, just, the guys who have been in the program 3 or 4 years, and if they come out of the spring and they know they're not going to be a starter or maybe even top number 2 guy, then there's a good chance they go in looking for a place where they can get to play. I think that's what you're going to have in that window. That's what's going to be interesting, though, with Alabama being so active, because I think Alabama and they're going to be on the hunt after spring practice. So you may see some marquee players get poached at that time just because, if they don't love it where they're at, Alabama's still going to be an attractive destination.
It'd be funny if they picked off the guys that were 4th string at FSU that were frustrated and put their name in the portal. Alabama's like, we'll take you.
Yeah.
We'll take you. We're struggling over here. You're like, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Good luck, young man.
On that note, though,
Alabama.
Do we need to stop even looking to the future anymore? Like, because it's in our mindset as college football fans to look at a team and project a year or 2 years down the road. I'm at the point now where, man, what's even the point? Like, why waste that brain power? You have no idea what any of these rosters are going to look like a year down the road.
That's where it comes back to what you're doing on the recruiting trail, the high school recruiting trail, because, again, I brought this up on Wake Up. You go look at these portal classes, like the teams that are ranked in the top 10. Florida State's 4th, I think, and on 3. But it's Ole Miss, it's Louisville, it's throw somebody else out there, or Colorado. Georgia and Ohio State are way down the list. They're in the 50s and 60s. They get 4 or 5 guys from the portal. Everybody else is guys they're bringing up. And I think that's where you kind of want clearly that's where you want your program to be, where you don't. Like Georgia goes from year to year knowing who their team's going to be.
Yeah, but the defense of the teams that are heavy in the portal is those are all coaches that came in since the portal started. So you didn't even have Lane Kiffin got there when Norvell got here, and Colorado came after, and Louisville came after. So I mean, you don't have the luxury, I don't think, in college football today. If the portal's there, I think you have to go use it.
Sure.
And then once you get in that cycle.
Yeah.
And once you get in that cycle, so I just don't think it's fair to even compare. Like when people were doing the whole culture nonsense with Georgia and Florida State, yeah, man, Kirby had been there almost a decade. He was there before the portal. You can't even compare. It has nothing to do with the reflections of programs. It's where they were when these coaches came in. So I don't know that you can ever get there anymore.
I think Georgia and Ohio State go year to year projecting what their teams are going to be, and they mostly come back, just like Alabama did before Saban, with the good ones, with like the top tier dudes on their depth chart. I do think Florida State can get to that spot. Not this year, clearly, and probably not even next year. But if you stack 3 good recruiting
it's
classes
the
on top
ability
of
to
each other,
stack back to back to back to back top 5, top 10 classes.
the beauty is, in the meantime, while they're developing and growing up, you plug in play. I mean, they're going to have another year where they probably have 10 starters who are transfers, maybe more.
But now that guys can transfer every single year,
Yeah,
man,
I
I just
mean,
think
it's
it's going to be harder and harder.
That's the other part of it is I agree that you got to build. Ultimately, you want to try to build through the high school ranks. And in the interim, while you're striving towards that, make sure you fill the empty spots with these portal kids, especially if you're good at it, like Mike Norvell is. But yeah, even if you do that in the modern era of football, when kids could just leave because they got mad at you on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
You're just like, well, I don't know that I can count that so-and-so is going to be here next Friday. I mean, kids just screw it. They get mad. They want to leave.
And where they, the sweet spot seemed to be if you could get that guy in his second or third year of college who's going to be in college for a couple more years. Okay, you've got him now for, you got Jeremiah Myers.
One-time transfer. You had his ass once he transferred. He didn't go nowhere. Yeah,
exactly. But now, man, I mean, we'll see if that ever changes. But
it's got to change. It's terrible for none of the coaches like it. All of them hate it. It's awful. It doesn't make any sense.
The problem is, can you defend it in court? And that's the NCAA's problem.
Let's see here. Gator Kirk, FSU announces they're officially leaving the ACC. Do you think the ACC bans FSU from the championship game if that happens?
I don't know, and I don't think they could. I don't think they can. I mean, if you're in it,
I feel like there was some conference did that a couple of years ago in basketball. They didn't let a team that was leaving to go to another conference.
Sounds right.
Wasn't allowed to play in the conference tournament because they were leaving for another conference. So I guess theoretically they could, but I also don't think that would.
You're hurting yourself.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. It makes your conference look like a joke, especially in football. Yeah. And then, you might Florida State could get into the playoff anyway.
But then there's a lot of money on the line if the ACC doesn't get a team in the playoff, and obviously what it does to your championship game if you don't have the best team in the. So I don't think
they would do that.
To answer it, I don't think they would do it.
Yeah. But how could they? Because you think, okay, then Florida State's going to be like, you know what? Then we're not going to play Pittsburgh next week. So good luck filling that content and all those ratings you would have had. Sorry, figure out somebody else to play Pittsburgh. We're not playing Pittsburgh.
Austin writes, do any of y'all think that Span could possibly become a Jaheim Bell light? Haven't heard much about him being in the mix for starting receiver at all next year.
No.
He's still, he's still as talented as he is, as fast as he is, and as tall as he is, it's kind of a project. I mean, he has not gotten to the point where he's been anything close to a finished product where he knows exactly how to run every route, knows every part of the offense, is dependable. So
he's a weapon on special teams.
Yeah. So
they're trying to get him to be more dependable.
If you have another few months, maybe. I mean, the talent is there physically, but I don't know.
The Jaheim Bell part was what I was saying no to. Jaheim Bell used his physicality, ran over folks. It kind of enjoyed contact, it seemed at times. Deuce is not one of those guys. Again, I think he grew up playing quarterback.
He did.
Yeah, so that would be hard.
Plus he's a Lakewood kid, so
you know where he grew up playing quarterback.
That's right. That's right.
So
the Lakewood kids do not like contact.
There's all the ones in the NFL. Sure. Good day, gents, writes Marlon. Should we be waiting for more of the top-tier Bama players to come out? Because I understand it's Bama's backups that we're getting right now. But how about we just get their starters too?
Yeah, really. I mean, they look pretty good in the SEC championship game. Just get all of those guys.
Marlon, I'm good with that. I like declaring war on Alabama's roster like everybody else. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the Caden Proctor went in the portal, the offensive tackle. I think Florida State's at least in the mix there. They're at least talking to him.
I'll do a dance in this bitch if we get that kid. You got to be kidding me. A 5-star offensive tackle with that pedigree? Oh, man.
He was a freshman. Didn't he start this year as a freshman on Alabama's offensive line?
He's an NFL-bound dude.
Yeah. A lot of people think he's going to Iowa, but yeah, I mean, Florida State's at least in the mix.
Iowa. How do you go to Iowa?
Son, I know they have a track record of developing incredible offensive linemen.
Is he a punter? Does he punt too?
I mean, good God almighty, son.
You don't go from Alabama to Iowa, man. Is he from Iowa?
I think there's a connection there.
Good.
All right, there has to be, because that's crazy. But yes, Marlon, I like I like your suggestion. Let's just take their starters from here on out.
Get them all. Get them all.
Scott wants to know, guys, if Mike Norvell had left which coaches would he have taken with him, and which coaches would he have just left behind?
That's a fun experiment.
I love the way that he asked this question.
How about we give 2 that we definitely think he takes and don't answer the other
And
part?
don't answer the rest? That's a better way to do it.
I think he does he take Tokars?
I think Tony's done a very good job. He's an up-and-coming coach. That's not a bad answer, Corey.
And I think he would try to take Atkins. I don't know how with the NCAA thing, if that would be possible, or
that kid was committed to Iowa back in the process. That's why.
But he's not from Iowa.
I don't know. I've done enough research here during the show, but I do know he was committed to them at one point.
We don't need to be going to Iowa.
Iowa, that's crazy, man. Somebody has to save him from himself. Has he watched them play a game?
Good God,
it's the most boring. Imagine that kid playing at Alabama and then being like, "Wait, we're punting again. This is the 9th punt of the game. We've got 6 yards.
This is the first half. you got a lot more punting to do."
I think also on that question, I think David Johnson, running backs coach, coached in the SEC, so he might be a real contender there.
Surtain?
Odell's not going. I doubt Papuchis would be there. Surtain's a good answer.
There's no
Fuller also is an answer because I think he brought him from Memphis, but also the new coach might want his own DC.
Right.
I don't know how often DC stick around, and Fuller did do a very, very good job last year and has done a good job since he got here. That might be somebody he would have thought about.
It's a tough question to answer. That's really tough to answer.
Yeah, because it's not like evaluating who's the better coaches. It's just what would be a good fit there because of the recruiting and all the other things. So.
All right. So Tim wants to know, after the snub of the Orange Bowl, I've been wondering how Mike gets this team motivated again next year. Does he and the staff have to change messaging at all? I don't think so.
Here's the thing. I think there was a lot of that month was awful. And I did have questions about how easily it is going to be to get things back on track. I think DJ was a big deal, man. I think some of these guys staying who have announced that they're staying, I think is a big deal.
Yeah, getting Daryl Jackson to come back and getting Peyton to come back.
There's a few guys in there that I think it's
Farmer in there as well. Yeah.
So those are all positive. So I think it's going to be okay. I do think the messaging for last year was so dependent on that 1 year because it was just the way the season came together. Jordan and Jared coming back. And so it all felt like their whole focus was on that one thing. And if you just do this, we're going to get in the playoff. I feel like maybe you take a step back from that because I don't know this is a team that could guarantee it's going to be in the playoff anyway. So now it's not as all or nothing. So I think the messaging does change
12 spots. It's definitely not all or nothing.
That's a good point.
Sweet Jesus, you can go 10-2 and make the playoff.
Yeah.
You could lose to Georgia Tech in Ireland and make the playoff.
You absolutely could.
That would have happened last year.
Yeah, and and Norvell could always say, it's about the next game and it's not about, all that stuff. That's fine. But the players, as a team, they were focused on getting to the playoff.
It's also, again, man, it's a interesting. You're coming off an undefeated season. You bring in some guys back, but you got a lot of guys on this team, just like you did last year, that really haven't proven anything.
Yeah, I think that's
a really cool space to be. Like, you'd love to have proven commodities too, but you really have guys that haven't proven a darn thing in college that are trying to fight to make their own names for themselves.
I also think it's always important to point out, and I do think you had a confluence of events last year that are truly unique to that singular season that led to that disaster.
Right.
These circumstances are not going to be anything similar, but it's important to point out that people who get to this level of football are the most highly competitive people you'll ever come across. Motivation is very rarely something you have to worry about when a kid's playing big-time college football. I mean, he's had to motivate himself for a very long time. He's had to take it to the gym while everybody else is out having fun. He's had to be very disciplined for a very long time, and no competitor wants to get his ass kicked. Yeah, so regardless if you're thinking about, can we play for a championship? Like, no, we're playing today against Georgia Tech. I'm going to try hard. I mean, just why would you not? What kind of sorry son of a bitch takes the field and doesn't try hard?
Yeah, I don't think what happened.
Norvell, right? You're playing for Norvell, so that's a different kind of. I mean, they know what to expect. He'll wear you out if you're not trying.
And that's a good point. I don't think it was good to. I don't think it's fair to say that the message was wrong last year. It was right for that team.
Yes.
But to your point, Jeff, yeah, those guys they're going to be competitive. They're going to be fired up. That team got screwed. It wasn't the message's fault. It was the process's fault.
Completely screwed in a unique way that had never been done before. And so you had a result in the Orange Bowl that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that was. And it's frustrating. Sucks. Any guess on the second most impactful player in the fall of 24? Jonathan wants to know. He's assuming that DJ will be the most impactful player.
Talking about just transfers in general on the team.
I think he's saying on the team. Let's see. Yeah, he did not signify that it has to be a transfer.
I'm interested to see if Patrick Payton takes that step because he could be
A star.
big time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he was close last year. He certainly believes in himself. And I'll go the opposite then. I'll say Marvin. I want to. If that is that guy going to be? Can he be as good as Patrick Payton? That's a nice combo. Can he be better than Patrick Payton? We legitimately have no idea. He might be a all ACC first team guy. We have no idea what to expect from him, but he's going to be somebody that if he's good, if he's an all conference caliber defensive end, man, now you might have as good a defensive line as you did last year because you got more capable bodies.
One more guy I want to mention just because I feel like anytime we talk about 2024, I think I'm going to bring up Azareye'h Thomas. I have a feeling he's going to have a phenomenal year.
I like that, Ira. I've been thinking that for a while too. That's a good one. Golly, I feel like one of the receivers is going to have a monster year too. They're in a good position because when we do this exercise, you end up having a lot of options.
Yeah.
Brian writes, going back to the way both teams were playing in week one, if FSU played Georgia instead of LSU in week one, how likely do you think it is that FSU would have won that game?
Very likely, I think. I don't think
Georgia was sleepwalking the first half of the season.
That's the thing. It's hard to say. Georgia didn't look great early, but they also weren't
they weren't tested in any way.
But I think Florida State would have been more – Georgia was breaking a new quarterback. I think Florida State wins that game, I think.
It's certainly fair to speculate that they would. I don't know. I mean, maybe Georgia would have cared because it's Florida State. Georgia looked like they didn't give a damn to be anywhere in the first 5 weeks of the season. They were just kind of like,
Yeah, they would have. But yeah, I think the score would have been different than it was in South Florida.
You don't think it would have been 63-3?
I don't, guys. I'll go on a limb and say I think it would have been.
That's why we have you on the show, Corey.
Hey,
you're brave to put it out there.
Bold
I'm willing to go out on a limb and say I think if they play the first game of the season, it goes a different way. I really do.
You know what? One thing real quick, Corey has started now in most of his columns or articles. He's I think we've settled on Florida State's because Corey's trying to call it the 13-0 regular season. That doesn't really work because the conference championship game wasn't the regular season.
It is for me, Ira.
But I think what if we call it the 13-0 ACC championship season? Like Florida State's
because I always just refer to them as 13-0. I will never, ever, ever, and I don't care if you have to change my columns and edit them all the time, Ira. That was a 13-0 football team. It's 13-0. It's not. It wasn't 13-1. Yeah. I'm never putting the dash in the one next to it.
I'm always just going to refer to it as the undefeated season.
Yeah, all right. Ira.
There you go. That works too.
So
that's how we do it, Warchant.
In 2030, we'll be sitting around having a conversation. I'll be like, well, go back to the undefeated season in 23.
Yeah.
That's how you reference it.
That game never happened.
That's right.
They were 13-0.
Hey, if the NCAA can vacate games, we can vacate games.
Right?
We can, yeah, exactly right. We can.
I vacate the loss to Oregon. I don't count it. I'm forever talking about that incredible 2014 undefeated campaign, guys.
And I'll be honest, the wide right, I don't recognize either of the first two wide rights.
When we were
I'm going to do a lot like Alabama does and claim championships from back in the 50s.
Clemson too. Yeah. When we were at the Democrat, Bob Gabordi, who was our editor, may he rest in peace, he passed an edict when they took away Bowden's wins for the music theory class that we kept including them.
Oh, yeah.
We never changed his record.
You should.
Smart.
I don't know how I missed that Bob Gabordi died.
He did. Yeah. He had moved to Melbourne. And
how long ago was this?
Man, probably 3 years ago, probably.
Ooh, I had no idea. Who was the editor that hated me and I hated him?
Oh, that was the sports editor, right? Randy Beard.
Oh my God.
Randy Beard, he didn't like you, and he didn't like some other people too. But you were
All he cared about was
timeless.
women's freaking volleyball, and he gets so mad that I wouldn't
But
talk about
no,
it.
it
And
was
he's trying to
soccer.
tell him about me not talking about
It
it.
was soccer. He loved soccer, and he would take shots at like Sue Seminoles, I think,
It was
and other people.
weird.
It was
He was a
weird, man.
bitch.
Weird
He-
guy. Weird guy.
Yeah, he can go to hell.
All right, well, hey,
Um,
calm down. That's you speak for yourself on that one. I've
He
never
can go to
met the
hell. What's he
man.
going to do? Write another column about how I don't talk soccer? Has Atkins proved himself enough at recruiting and developing our linemen to refer to him moving forward? Trevor wants to know this as our meat manager.
It's a great nickname. Let's
Maybe-
run it by him and see if he's okay with that.
Well, and maybe Ben can agree to sponsor him. He could NIL deal for Alex Atkins as the meat manager, the registered sausage meat manager of the FSU football team.
Rich wants to know, is there any truth at all to the fact that Mike Norvell was Alabama's first choice?
Let's talk about that real quick.
Okay, here's what I want to do.
Okay.
I want to signify that after we talk about that, we're about to go rapid fire for the next 7 minutes afterwards.
Sounds good.
Go.
I do not know if he was the first choice because we don't know what the hell was happening with Lanning. We don't know. It's hard to say that because we don't know if anybody was like not really part of the mix. But to me, it comes down to Mike Norvell and Kalen. Do you what's his
DeBoer.
Kalen DeBoer.
You got it.
I think Mike Norvell had the first choice. I believe that from people I've talked to. I'm convinced that as of Thursday night, Mike Norvell was leaning towards taking that job, and I think there was a good chance he was going to take that job, and I think he could have taken the job if he wanted it. And I've heard that from several people close to the situation, but what validates it to me is, again, DeBoer did not take the job until Mike Norvell pulled out on Friday. If DeBoer wanted it, why he could have, and he had the first choice, he could have made that decision. Nothing changed for him in those last couple of days,
Also,
other than Mike Norvell pulled his name out.
When I got really worried was after Lanning said no or tweeted out his video.
That's the first moment I got very, very worried because
Then Bruce Feldman started tweeting out about how Mike Norvell is a good fit for Alabama. It makes sense for Alabama. And I'm like, man, Feldman's really connected now.
Well,
Feldman knows this stuff. He's not like some other national people that just throw things at a wall. He's connected enough to be like, okay, that makes it really, really realistic. And then Dellinger reported after the fact that Alabama heavily pursued Norvell. Those two guys don't make stuff up, man.
And credit our guy Andy Staples, who Jeff had on that day. Andy texted me, and I'm sure he texted you guys too, as soon as it broke about Saban, guys, watch out for Norvell. And I was a little surprised by that. I did not know that they liked him that much, but apparently it was not a big secret that Greg Byrne and Jimmy Sexton was going to push him, and that Greg Byrne really liked Mike Norvell.
And just to understand, guys, that we're all full of crap because Paul Feinbaum is certain Mike Norvell was never a candidate, and so you guys, you can pontificate all you want, but the man has told you he was never even in the running.
But it's a huge win for Florida State. And again, they give him credit for stepping up and making sure that Mike Norvell felt like this is a great job because, yeah, man, that's a tough job to turn down.
I'm going to add to this. All I'll say is, and I'm like you guys, I've heard all those same things, and we know behind the scenes how nasty this can get. I believe it's a big deal that Mike chose to stay, not because of the money, but because he has to believe we're not here in a couple of years. There's no way you stay in the ACC. You just don't. You're not staying here if you think you're stuck in this second-class conference for the next 6 years. You're not going to.
I mean, if you win the conference, you're in the playoff. It's a lot easier getting the playoff at Florida State right now than it is at Alabama.
I'm just telling you that if you thought that every time it came down to it, you weren't going to get the nod. So say 12th, 10th, whatever it was, you were going to get screwed in seeding. You weren't going to make the playoffs if you were on the edge. And then you were going to continue to be behind in resources. And that gulf was going to grow and grow. And there's no chance you stay here. You leave.
Yeah, and that goes along with what I think we've all felt for a little while, that we don't think they're going to be in this conference for more than a year, maybe two at most.
But the reason I bring it up is we think that, and I think we're right to think that, but clearly Mike is asking Jimmy Sexton if he thinks that.
Yeah, well, I think Jimmy Sexton may have preferred that Mike went.